afternoon. It's another Friday afternoon, and we have another interesting guest. Soumya Shankar Raman is the head of therapy and operations at TTK Hospitals. But she started out as a banker. And during our conversation earlier, she told me how there is still a stigma attached, not just to people who have mental health issues, but to doctors who want to practice it. It isn't a regular choice. And for Soumya, who started out as a banker and then moved into therapy, it's been quite a journey. And that's what we'll be exploring today. So let me bring Soumya on board and begin the conversation from there. Hi, Soumya.
Hello, sir.
Good to have you on the show. And
Thank you.
It's wonderful to talk about what your life has been because, conventional careers we are pretty familiar with. But why don't you tell us what a typical day for you is like? Mm-hmm. And then we will go back to, where it started and what are the things that happened. Take it from there.
Okay. So I work with TTK Hospital, which is a de-addiction center, one of the first of its kind in India. It was started 43 years back by our founder, Dr. Shanti Ranganathan. So I head the overall operations and the therapy here. So when I enter, it's like every day is a different day. It's not, the usual, and it's unpredictable. So you do not know what is in store for you when you enter. So sometimes I say it's quite entertaining at times because it just keeps you, it's like what next, right? So my day starts with just to see what's happening. I go on rounds to see what's happening and if everybody is comfortable. And then we do have some problematic patients. This is a rehab for drug and alcohol addiction. So problematic patients, there would be a note that is left that somebody's created some issue. There is a family that is demanding or a family that needs some attention. So I sort out all that and then we see the number of people who've come in for consultation. I try and see that they met soon and their waiting time is thing. So I also pitch in if the intake counselor is loaded and she has a lot of a long waiting thing because I don't want people waiting because this is they're very fragile when they come seeking help and there can be a change of mind in a second, right? They say, no, I don't want treatment. So we don't want to lose them. We don't want to lose that motivation. So I clear whenever, it's kind of thing. I also meet patients and motivate them for treatment. And of course, then the regular staff management in handling crisis with staff, right, with patients, with the admin.
Yeah. Like you said, that is the routine part of the job which has to be done. There is the paperwork, which irrespective of whichever job you're in, that is part and parcel of what you do. Yes. Okay. So why don't we go back to your childhood and what was it like in your early years and what were you thinking about and, where did it all begin?
So we've predominantly been in Chennai, though a few years in Delhi. My father was in Delhi and I'm the eldest of three. And I have always been the challenging one. I've given my parents a very tough time and I would go missing. I would basically a very, very handful one. And most part of my years were in Chennai. And I used to like animals a lot, I used to go pick any kitten, pigeon, crow. And so it used to be, and I always thought I'll become a veterinary doctor. But the biology bit and the science bit was too much for me to take. I was not very academically oriented. I was an average, sometimes below average student. But what my father always identified in me was I was very a people's person. I would find it very easy to connect to people and all that. But very selective. But I think over a period of years, I kind of, the extrovert in me kind of came. But yeah.
Came to the fore. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was college like? What did you do in
College,
college?
I did took commerce in 11th and 12th, and my father is into recruitment. So he thought I will take on to his ropes, and I also thought I will. And I did BBA, and after BBA, it was only, the plan was to do MBA. I did CAT preparation and everything. And I always wanted to get into HR.
Okay.
I thought I wanted to get into HR, and that's when MSSW and all that happened. So I applied for MSW HR also in MSSW. Meanwhile, a friend of mine told me that there's something in Stella. MSW is there, Stella, but not the HR specialization. And I found medical and psychiatry very interesting.
Okay.
And I applied and I got the admission also. And meanwhile, I got it in MSSW too, the HR thing. But I stuck on to medical and psychiatry. And what helped me was my father was not in town. So to kind of, so I just went.
So he couldn't he couldn't influence you to change your.
Yeah, it was all STD and calling and the connectivity. He was traveling and I took that to my advantage and went and paid the fees. Told my mother didn't understand much of what was happening. Just said I got it in Stella. I didn't tell her what specialization. That's all.
Okay.
So I went and paid and.
But you had no idea what defined that choice. That is medical and psychiatry. Did you know anything about what you were letting yourself in for?
I like the idea of. I like to be of a catalyst for change for people and kind of help them. That's always excited me, and I drew a lot of happiness out of helping people and being there for them. And when I read through the course thing, it really helped me. And as a teen, it's very exciting to be in a psychiatric setting and be in a psychiatric hospital and work with the things. So that's what interesting.
That's what interested you. What was the course itself like? When you went through the course, did you find it met the expectations you had?
Yes, so it was 2 years. The first year was general, right? And where you go into, they expose you to communities and most of community work. The second year is where you specialize in medical and psychiatry, where you are placed in a psychiatric setting, a medical setting. The first year is where the course you have 3 days of field work. So they place you in a field under an NGO and you work. There's a lot of learning on the job. The first placement was Kasimed for me, which is North Chennai, fishermen, and they're also the undermen for all these thugs. So that place is notorious. So that's where they placed me, and I came from a very, very, I wouldn't say orthodox, but all this was very new to them, vegetarian family, and to go to Kasimed and all that. I think my father, he was very, they were all angry, wild. But the rebel in me kind of, I think, and of course I did not share too much of information of where. So yeah, I would go to Kasimed. Initially, I found it very, very difficult with, the fish all over and, that I just couldn't manage. And all the other, my friends were all nuns. And so they were used to it. And it took a while, but then I settled in very well there. I made a lot of friends there. So kind of, I like that work in the community.
Yeah. So what are the kind of cases that you were seeing, or what were the kind of problems that you were seeing in the village at that point?
Yeah, it was an urban slum. So the more issues used to be domestic violence and again alcoholism, and mostly these two, and a lot of psychiatric issues among people, and mostly it used to be domestic violence and addiction. And so we also with empowering women was one of our work, with self-help groups and all that. So that was the issues that we were seeing there.
So you're helping women handle how, let's say, if there was a domestic violence issue, what did the women need to do? Or was it about telling them to, find a way
Yeah,
to
find a way,
live with them.
to kind of empower them, because they would be dependent on the husband. So alcoholism was rampant there, and there was a lot of peddling. At that time, not much of drugs, but whatever. So we used to empower the women. So we used to teach them to make soap oil, soaps, detergents, and all that. We used to go to Paris, buy raw material, come ask them to make, supply to those shops. Some income generation, then tailoring. So all that kind of thing we used to do there.
Okay.
So my work was predominantly with women then.
Right. Okay. But you got a sense of the environment and what this whole, like you said, it is a very alien environment for you, because Casimir is not typically the kind of neighborhood that people even, they try to drive past or go past it very quickly, even if they have to get past into that area.
Yes.
But I guess at some point you understood then that it wasn't something that turned you off. You didn't.
It didn't. It didn't. Only except the fish part and the non-veg part, which,
Okay, which is again, nothing really.
It used to be like we wear sari, and for a teenager to be in a sari, our field work, we had to definitely wear sari and go. And by the time I reached them, my saris used to be in different, things. So those people used to take me home. The women there tied properly for me, and so that it doesn't come out. So it was very nice.
Okay.
And they used to make something for me to eat, and so much of love. But they never understood the concept of vegetarian. So they, I had to keep telling them I don't. Curd was so alien to them. They're like, curd? What is that?
Okay. Yeah, they don't have a procedure. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful, Soumya. So what happened after you finished the course and then?
I finished the course. The second year was in a psychiatric setting in Stanley, then medical setting. There we really saw cases that was very disturbing, very extreme cases. It still interested me, but somewhere I always had this interest to work in the field of addiction. And at that point, TTK was the only place where you could work, and there were not many jobs. So after I finished college, it was definitely, it was a given that they would get me married in a year or two because I was the eldest. And I started looking for jobs in NGOs and all that. Father was very, very, because, there were a lot of misappropriation of funds with NGOs and all that. So he was not very happy. Then I said I wanted to work in the field of addiction. We are a very close-knit family, and everybody felt like it's unheard of in our families, a girl going and working with addicts. And it may, affect her, marriage proposals. And I had a sister who was younger. They took it to a different level. And there were not many jobs as well. And then so I just took whatever came by my way, and I got into Standard Chartered banking, customer care, and all that. I liked training from there. Within a year, I also got married.
Okay. And what was your husband's take on this whole thing? You had told him at some point that this is what you were interested in.
The sore point between me and my husband. So he's our relative, and so it just happened and got married. But when I told him that this is what I wanted to do after we got engaged and all that, there was just pin drop silence. It was like as I had narrated some horror story, and he didn't say anything. He came back the next day and he said, I don't think you should pursue it because it may affect the mental health of our children or our thing, because you would be working with these people, and I think all of them, my in-laws and all, they were like a little taken aback. And so then I just got married and so it's still a sore point between us.
you are obviously a person who's used to getting her way and knows her mind. So that's a wonderful quality, Soumya, because, I think for people who really want to bring about change, they can't let anyone else, no matter how close or how distant, dictate what should be done.
That's right.
If you really want to then it means putting up with a certain amount of strife, and like you said, it is a sore point. But at some stage, hopefully the thing. But I can empathize and understand where they're coming from, because they
That's
think
right.
that,
Yes.
yeah,
Because it is really unheard of. And he was like, what? And no. He was like, I was still 23, 24, right? And he was almost 5 years elder than me. And he was
okay,
like, can we just take it on later and think about it later? I don't know how this will impact our family. So it's
okay,
not like I'm going to bring an alcoholic in the house and keep him work there. So
okay.
that's it.
But it's, yeah, it almost, yeah. Sometimes I wonder about these, because there are people who take this up. Let's say NGOs who take up things which are fairly difficult to do for people who look at it from the outside. But for the people who are doing it, there's a sense of satisfaction. There's a sense of saying that
Right.
I am bringing about a change. I'm changing a person. Literally, you are bringing someone back from the brink of something, or
Right.
in cases where you're successful, which
Yes.
I think is a wonderful quality. So then, so you got into TTK from there, from Standard
No.
Chartered?
No. After that, it was like I had my son, and my father wanted me to join this business. I joined.
Okay.
It was a recruitment firm. I joined. There's only fireworks between me and my father. So
Okay.
we said we parted amicably after a couple of years. And of course, I needed flexibility because of my son. He was quite a challenge,
Handful.
a handful, and required a lot of attention. So I took up flexible jobs. Then I took on training. I said, okay, at least whatever I have, let me, kind of. So I took up more of training, and I worked with the in L&D roles, L&D, HR, employee engagement, employee welfare. So I was there. In 2016-17, I started feeling that I should get back to. So I did a course to get back into this field, counseling and all that. And I was I was counseling, I was associated with some colleges, schools. That's when TTK happened. They were looking at someone to so TTK was going through some kind of change. Our founder had retired, and our managing trustee was there. There was a little bit of turbulence. So so that's when I came into the picture. It was an experimental role that I took on 3 days a week, because people here, the other therapists, are all much older to me. These are people who probably taught me when I was in college.
Right.
So I don't know if they will accept a younger person and an outsider as somebody who they have to report to. But I managed 3 days a week. Then it went on to being here day in,
Full
day out.
time.
Full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sure you come across a whole lot of different, there could be some situations at home which are similar, but I suppose every case is unique in its own way
That's right.
as to what, why people walk down that road of addiction. You also said that you used to see a lot of alcoholism when you went into Casimir,
Right.
but not too much of drugs. Has that changed now?
Of course, that's changed after COVID itself. Number of cases that we are seeing, there's been a lot of drugs flux into the society, and people taking on to drugs very early. So, even minors starting off with. So, yeah.
So is it the availability, or is it that there's the mental state of the person? What is your take on how people get addicted?
See, it starts with friends. It starts, with that one for fun thing, and that's when it just seems. So out of 10, 3 or 4 become dependent, right? And after COVID, when the task mark was shut during COVID, I think people needed alternate sources to kind of get high, or for their cravings, and that's when the drug. And it was easy to peddle through children and minors because they wouldn't get caught. So that's how now it's like a mess.
So you're seeing minors constitute one part of the patients. They are a fair.
They come in as an outpatient, but last month, we announced an inpatient treatment for the minors. And
Wow.
So though we've not yet started getting, because there is a lot of stigma, right, still. And for a minor child to get admitted in a rehab, it is taking some time. But we've already started working with juvenile homes where there's a background of addiction with their delinquent, juvenile delinquent. We've already started working with them.
Okay. So, I mean, this thing is, in some of these cases, especially celebrities and some who, go through mental health issues or whatever, and rehab has become a kind of this thing as to maladjusted people who've not managed to, whether it's the rigors of the job or the kind of lifestyle that they go into. What actually happens in rehab? What happens with?
So, rehab, yes, there are a lot of rehabs that are not, they do not have the permit, and they are not, there is no supervision or monitor. But normally in a rehab that we follow, it's an evidence-based practice. And in fact, we've set examples and we've formulated the standards of care for the country. So what happens is we only take in people who have the motivation to change and who are seeking help and who are willing to. So usually what happens is they go through a detoxification where their medical conditions are managed, the withdrawals are managed, and then they move to a 21-day therapy of, group therapy, counseling, and some re-educative sessions. We have supportive therapies like horticulture therapy and music therapy, art, and we also have a therapy dog that comes in, animal-assisted therapy. So we kind of...
Okay. So it's for when you first saw it, when in your early, days when you said you were going 3 times a week, what are the first impressions? What is it that first struck you about the place? And
So
the
this
kind
is
of
a place
patients
that
you
I've
saw,
always aspired to come in.
right?
But when I came in, I could sense there was a lot of turbulence. There was
Right.
a lot of unrest that was going on. And in fact, our trustee, who I'm very close to now, and at that point when I looked at her, I was like just wondering if this is going to even sustain. Because she also did not give me too much of hope that, that I could. She said, try it and see. Let's see how long we're able to last. That was the kind of message that I got from her. But so I had all my options open when I came in here. I was still doing other projects, and I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So that's how. And then slowly I kind of managed to ease in with the team, gain their confidence and everything. And we brought in the trustee that I work with has been very encouraging, and she's given me the freedom to, bring in a lot of initiatives.
Okay.
Because to bring in a lot of changes inside.
Okay.
That helped. The support from the trust.
Okay. So Soumya, take me through, let's say, without of course disclosing any of who the person is or identity, some of the cases which have made a mark on you as a person, where you felt that you changed or something within you was different after interacting or managing that person.
There are many, many. So, see, especially let me just start on a general note. When I see the women bring in their husbands, right, they would have gone through so much of abuse, domestic abuse at home, but still, when they don't give up on the husband, sometimes, you feel like shaking the woman and say, what are you doing to this man? But of course, I can never do that. But, you can make out, there's no hope for this. There are certain personalities, right? There are personality defects where this man is going to remain this way. He is going to have this entitled behavior, but the woman will still she will never give up and she'll be at his beck and call. So though sometimes, you feel like, there are times that I've been very angry on that person, saying, why are you with him? What is in it for you? But then you understand that vulnerable situation that they're in. And sometimes I tell my husband also, I appreciate you better because and you're getting away with a lot of things because of the work that I do.
Yeah, because you're seeing extremes of human nature.
Right.
Okay. So what is it that people are typically, it's because they are disappointed with the way life has treated them, or is it simply that they are inclined, some of the addicts are simply, they get into that whole this thing and then they're
They
not
just
able to
get
get out of
into and then they find reasons as to why they're in it. Right. And then after that, it becomes a dependence and it's beyond them where they're able to control, even though sometimes they really want to. And it is beyond them after that.
it. Okay. And then do people lapse back
Yes.
into...
The nature of this disease, addiction is a disease where relapse is very, very common.
Okay.
So we also have a relapse management program and we prepare the families to face, we tell them, we empower them, as to what they have to do if there's a relapse or a lapse. We empower the patients also.
Okay. So is this typically because, let's say, they're getting back to the same environment? You mentioned horticulture therapy. You mentioned music therapy. Now, is it that they don't have a chance to practice that when they come back or get
No, it is
de-addicted?
also like to give them healthy alternatives that can
Okay.
be used as recreation, right? Now, for the family also undergoes therapy while the patient is undergoing therapy. So for them also we do horticulture. So to kind of nurture a plant for that 3 weeks, 4 weeks and associate their recovery to that. Somewhere they start associating their recovery to nurturing a plant and thing. And we give it to them home. We ask them to take it home and they take care of that sapling. So somewhere that is also therapeutic. Art again with colors and all that. And then people who like music bring in lyrics that they are able to resonate with on life and all, and they sing that and with instruments. That is, gives them a lot of relaxation. And of course, the therapy dog that comes is.
So what does that therapy dog do?
So the therapy dog, her name is Kip, the Labrador.
Okay.
So when I came in, I wanted animal-assisted therapy very badly. And luckily, all these are initiatives that I brought in, the other supportive therapies along with our trustee, who's quite, broad-minded that way, is ready for change. And she is about 68 years old, but you can, the kind of, there's no resistance to any change. She's just open. So I've learned a lot from her, actually. And, that way, that's when we started animal-assisted therapy. So the therapy dog comes, these are all rescue dogs. So the animal-assisted therapist who comes relates their story from the rut from a rescue to a therapy dog, right? And kind of in some way we give that hope to our patients, saying that you may have you are in this condition, but there is still hope. And then there are a few exercises of grooming the dog that is also said to be therapeutic. The dog also plays with the ball and comes back to you. And when they are sharing about their life, the dog goes and puts her paw on them and kind of.
Whoa.
All that.
Okay.
So, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I haven't, but the moment you narrated something like this, and then you said that, and this ties in beautifully with how you said you started early on, used to pick up everything from crows to birds.
I still do.
You still do. So that's like this nurturing, approach has been, I think it's part of your nature, which is why you're drawn towards it.
Yes.
So, and it's one of those qualities which, everyone talks, this world talks of empathy and, having to understand people. But I think you see the side of people that most others, either their own families are not willing to admit it, the patients themselves are not willing to admit it, because it takes a long time. I've known of people who have 2-3 drinks a day every day, and he says, "No, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm perfectly fine."
You're perfectly.
that whole this thing of admitting is actually one of the biggest.
They're all in high denial, right? And sometimes to break that denial and is a challenge.
So, what do you do to break denial? What are the things that you have to?
See, my style, I don't confront. I never confront. I'm not comfortable confronting, but I go with the flow. I go with the flow and just keep listening. And somewhere there will be a spark for me to hold on to, and then start, talking to them about the damages, possible damages that could be in the family, right? Because of the drinking. Like today, we had one person who said, "There's no issue. I earn in crores. There's no. I've given my wife this. I've given," but the wife is sobbing here, right? And then, but he's a guy who, if I confront, would even his ego will go. He will go 2 notches up. So I had to be like, just smile and acknowledge what he said. And then slowly, then I said, then when the wife started breaking down, he looked away. Then I said, then I had to kind of work through the children. Children are always the sensitive areas. So when I asked how are the children doing, that's what broke him. So when the daughter, did not score well in her boards because she's so worried about the father. And when the wife narrated it, he started crying. So, I kind of got on to that point, and so he is agreed for admission.
Wow.
So now each one will have a sore point. You just have to be like, to catch on.
Figure out what exactly it is. And, this thing that you just said, that confrontational, this whole thing of advisory, there are these people who will come and tell you, oh, but do this and you will instantly stop. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Because in something as simple as craving for sweets.
Right. It's like
who love sweets. We are all addicted to different things in life, except that some are far more damaging than some of the things that do. It's just that some of those don't have as much of a life-changing condition as some of the problems that people have to do. So how do they manage to get them to the place first? How do families actually arrive there?
The damages more, sometimes we know when people walk in and they're in denial still, they go back saying, I don't have a problem. We know that the person is going to come back in a matter of months because the damages will only increase. It could be, health-wise, it could be psychological, it could be in the family, it could be at work. So when the stakes are high, that's when they come. Stakes get higher.
Okay. It's a very sad descent, right? So in terms of when you see it, it's hard not just on the person, but on all the people who are with them. Because
so that's why we say addiction is a family disease. So we treat the family, not only the person, because the wife, the spouse goes through exhibits a lot of psychological disturbance when they are associated and when they're living with an addict, right? So that's why we work with the family also. And they also go through therapy.
Okay. So then what is the issue in most cases? Is it violence? Is it behavior which is erratic?
It's the behavior, it's the emotional abuse in most cases that the wife goes through. And then, of course, there are financial damages where they sell off everything and, very poor judgment on financial decisions. All that happens.
Okay. No, it's one of those things where if you're a bystander, if you're on the outside, then it looks as if people can get their life in order. But I think to the people who are in the middle, it's almost like being caught in some kind of a thunderstorm.
That's right. And it just keeps going down and down, where sometimes they hit rock bottom and then they have nothing to do, no other things to do, and the only way out is treatment. So people come in like that as well.
Whoa. That's actually a far more, difficult situation to emerge from, rather than if it's early on where they still have finances and they can get back to some kind of
only about 20 or 30% come like that. Otherwise, it's mostly the rock bottom cases, where the stakes are high. They've lost a job, or the wife is separated. The wife has gone away. So that's when they come as there's no other option. Then they come seeking it.
Okay. So over the last 15, 20 years, has the number of patients increased dramatically from the people that you talk to, or what has been the trend?
Addiction per se has increased, but number of people seeking treatment has decreased. One is because there are many other. Earlier, TTK was the only hospital. Now there are many other small centers, so people prefer going there. There are psychiatrists treating, so they go there. But per se, about addiction to substances has increased, like because of drugs and now prescription drugs. Youngsters take on painkillers. They buy over the counter, and that's another war that we are seeing.
Okay. So, like you said, each kind of addiction is different. So, people taking painkillers, is it more of a kind of intoxication? Is it what exactly is?
So, they take in painkillers like Tramadol, painkillers used for labor pains and all that, and it kind of gives them a high.
Okay.
They're in this state, and they have bloodshot eyes, and more youngsters take onto it, or they dilute it and inject it.
Okay. My God, this is literally having to see a different set of. And okay, what your husband had told you early on, that you're going to be spending time with people like this practically the whole day. So at the end of a day, what gives you hope?
What gives me
hope, or how do you maintain a kind of equilibrium, or is that something that comes by nature?
See, that is there because one thing is we learn to disconnect. We are taught to disconnect, right? But of course, there are one or two cases that shake you. Like my son is a 16-year-old, right? And when I meet teenagers and all that, somewhere it chugs me inside when I see boys that age. Last week, I'd gone to the juvenile observation home. My son was out trekking and he was having the time of his life. And I just got off a call from him and he said, can you give me 1,000 rupees? Can you send it through GPay? I want to go to a food court. I said, 1,000 rupees for one meal. And I just said, I think, it's a bit much. He said, no, I may need another 500 also. And I just laughed it off and think, but when I entered and I see boys his age in a juvenile home, sitting with plates, it just broke my heart. I mean, I was like, look at life, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens, but we learn to kind of disconnect. So we learn to kind of disconnect, and so burnout is very common in our profession. So we also go on trips, vacation. I take my team out, go out for them to just disconnect. Even as a team, though they go out with families also, but as a team also we take that time off and go out. That's something that I've started, practice that I've started. So we also kind of learn to disconnect.
No, you're like, to put it in this thing, you're like the pressure cooker valves. You literally, as far as society is concerned, this is something they aren't even aware of. And these days, I'm saying you can even keep. Earlier, you had this thing where you were traveling in a vehicle and a beggar came close. They could reach out. They were very close. But today, if you travel in a car with the windows up, you don't even, it's like you live in your bubble and that bubble never breaks. It's almost as if you're moving from one safe bubble to the next one. So for someone like you who has opted, you've actually, I think you're doing a marvelous. Though you can say that this is a passion and the thing, I accept that, but I think it's wonderful to have people who understand that this is a job that needs to be done, as opposed to I'll compared to this, the stress of doing the regular job seems almost
I think my husband, he is in IT, and when we compare our salaries, I say, I mean, this world is so unfair. We were all,
That,
with programming and all that, and we deal with lives. And, that's why I think many of them, even people, to be open, the financial thing is not much in social work
right,
with NGOs. But still, people
right.
choose to come here because of the passion, right? But
Yeah.
many of them are not able to because they can't make that choice because they can't afford to, So
Right.
if you see the number of social work students passing out, like I went to banking, right? But the number taking in social work is less. They move to corporate jobs. Mainly because of the financial, the salary.
Yeah.
It's very underpaid.
No, you're 100%. I mean, I'm saying teachers, people working in the profession that you're in, are not. This is not the top scale, and very often I think it's related. It's I think practically in every business there is this whole thing of who's doing the work and who's earning the most. There's a huge imbalance. There doesn't seem to be a real, and I don't think that there is an easy way out for any of this. Now look at policemen. They're seeing crime, and they're having to deal with being in situations which are not just dangerous but could be life threatening at certain points. But it is not one of those jobs which, so I guess somewhere the motivations are very different, and what we see in a job and what people see typically in a job are so different when you compare professions that it's not easy to just draw a line and then say that this is how it's done. Okay. So how do you see this? As far as you're concerned, you're perfectly happy with the kind of work that you're doing. How do you think that what do you see going forward? What are the things that you would like to do or change about therapy?
Therapy, like there are a lot of very new concepts in therapy, which I keep having my team upgrade themselves, read up, and do. So that is there. But we're also doing a lot of work with the government now, lobbying in for the change, suggesting things. So that is very exciting to be working with the government and earlier.
What are you lobbying for? What are the things? What are the issues that you're
for minors, addiction centers for minors, doing more, bringing in more exclusive therapy for minors, for addiction, for women, and pushing in for more evidence-based therapies and all that. We're trying to set up location-specific de-addiction centers for the government. So that is a lot of, it's quite interesting.
Yes, very true. The mix of patients, is it more male or female?
More of male because of the stigma again here. Chennai especially has a very culturally weak. So women reaching out for help is less. Though addiction is quite rampant, especially prescription drugs.
Okay.
Off the counter.
That's and this is a Western import, right? One of the things which has become a pretty difficult thing. Okay. What about social classes? Is it more from the lower class, the lower socioeconomic class?
From an auto driver to a businessman to celebrities, of course, we don't really jump in when celebrities reach out because for us it's very difficult to manage celebrities in here because their confidentiality is breached and the others will be more thing. And with celebrities, we can't give them that exclusive, separate treatment. But we do offer personal counseling sessions.
Okay. And then, but in their case, what is it? Is it a feeling of alienation? What are the kind of things that celebrities seem? Is it the same? It's exactly the same.
I feel very sad when I work with celebrities because when you see them and you like what life, their lives, people always aspire for a celebrity life, right? And all of us are starstruck, but to go in and peek into their challenges and their life, they just are in a situation where they can't move front, back, and all that. They're caught in a web. And it is very difficult to kind of help them through it.
Okay. So because there are several dependencies.
And then the kind of their work, the kind of challenges they have, the stress, the demands, and of course the public image. Right here, they can't really seek help for any physical ailments, yes, but when it is even physical ailments, they're very, very wary about seeking help. Right? They have the doctors come in, but like a commoner who can just walk into any counseling, they can never do. So it's always in an undisclosed location that we meet. It's like that.
Yeah. And you're seeing them in a way, like you said, you're starstruck when you see the glamour magazines and the interviews on television where they seem to be, the center point of the world. And suddenly when you see them as scared, vulnerable. Yeah. It's quite and that's the other part that I suppose one of the things about advertising is that you tend to see people before the makeup and after the makeup, because when they come for a shoot, and sometimes when you see the photograph that you've, made the decision on, and when the person walks in, it's almost as if, was this the person that,
That's right. Every celebrity that I work with, I only end up feeling very sad for their situation. And you end up thinking nobody should ever have that life. The kind of that they're into. And you wonder, like, was he or was she the one that I saw on TV and the news? And look at her now, vulnerable.
Yeah. And this is the one part that never comes out. It's almost as if, these media. Yeah.
So even
these media stories will make references. They will drop hints. But no one wants this thing to come out into the open because there's so much riding on that image. It's like you've created this whole, image that shouldn't be destroyed. It shouldn't be sullied. But I suppose the people who work in the business and you who see the other side of that vulnerability know exactly what is involved. So that's so what are I found the whole thing about you using dogs as therapy. So what are some of the new breakthroughs that are coming in, or what are some of the new things that you're trying out in terms of trying to break the cycle?
The other, like, all these supportive therapies are new, which I brought in after I came in, and we experimented a bit. Music is one that they all like, especially the women, the spouses. They just wait for the music therapist to come in. They love it. You should see them singing and with the lyrics that they. In Arya will be MGR part, all MGR songs and all that. And so it's nice. It's like that sisterhood, amongst them, and they feel each other.
So sometimes you wonder, is it companionship and a sense of normalcy that seems to define this? I'm in a point.
Yeah. So here, when when the other wives, they all get together, they go out shopping, and it's nice, and they kind of support each other, and it's nice to see, and they love to be here, right? Initially they'll say, I'll stay only for 4 days, 5 days, but then they'll stay on because of the company here. And we have children also. Sometimes I allow the child also to stay on, because if both the parents are here and the child may be uncomfortable, and the mother may also be very restless without the child. So I love children also to stay on. So sometimes my room is like a creche. They all just walk in and they're sitting here, sitting there, pulling here, pulling there. But then it's nice to have them around. And
so and then do this.
So we kind of, one thing that I'm very particular, and I tell my counselors and my team, is treat them like a normal. We don't treat them as an addict in the society and somebody who's looked down. It's like somebody who has an issue, like if he had diabetes or if he had another medical condition, how would you treat him? You have to treat him like that. Respect his profession, respect his experience, respect his background. We never talk down to them. So we kind of give them that.
Yeah. And that's definitely one of the reasons why people stay on, I think, because if they felt that they were being patronized or they were being made an example of, then it would work counter to everything that Like
So,
you're saying, one of the things is loneliness, companionship, a sense of normalcy, which people tend to take for, the smallest pleasures in life are not what people, they somehow seem to think that happiness is some, major thing that happens. But very often it's in the very small things that you,
yeah. So yeah, that's why all these therapies we tell so that they discover other options and not earlier drinking used to give them happiness. So we're trying to help them explore what else that they could.
okay, okay. No, I think what you do is not just admirable, but essential. And like, teachers show the way to how a future can be attained. You're actually course correcting. You're saying, okay, there may be people who have strayed, but we are figuring out ways to bring them back to a life which is more meaningful for them.
Giving them
And to
a
find
chance.
meanings in the,
Yes.
pardon me?
Help them, get another chance to life, right?
Exactly.
It's not like it's not over.
Exactly. No, it's been so inspirational talking to you, Soumya, because
Thank you.
I was actually wondering, how do you go about these things? And when we started the podcast, we were trying to see how we could talk to as wide a cross section of professions as possible, rather than, these stereotypical definitions of success and what people need to do. So I've spoken to people who have done yoga instruction, and then we've talked to an archaeologist. We talked to Dr. Srinivasan of Jeevan Blood Bank. So we have, I think the really interesting part is how each person finds a kind of lodestar. And you are the rebel. You figured out how things were. And I'm so glad that you stayed. And I'm sure that every single one of patients you've helped and the families you've helped, not just the patients, would have a silent prayer for you every day of their lives, because it means that you got them back into the process of living, which I think is a marvelous.
Sometimes I feel more than me, it's the counselors who are at the grassroots level, right? Who are like struggling with them day in and day out. And I'm more on on more decision making and the firefighting and all that.
Okay.
So when I look at them, it's like for them it's day in and day out thing, but
Okay.
I'm there all around. So they give me a lot of. I draw a lot of inspiration from them.
Okay. But again, they're part of your team, and
Yes.
they obviously look up to you for, an understanding and for realizing where this whole thing can go. So thank you for doing what you do, Soumya. It was wonderful talking to you, and it was great knowing how much of a difference you make with the simple act of listening to people and getting them back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this platform, sir. I mean, it is very interesting.
Please,
And your laugh
please don't-
is really charming.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to have you as a guest on the show. And I hope lots of people see the episode and draw inspiration from what you are doing.
We have an internship program, so a lot of young kids are coming in, a lot of boys, and it's very, very, it's very refreshing to see young boys coming into this field. Otherwise, it's mostly women oriented, right?
Okay.
Women dominated, and asking a lot of questions, and it's not like they've taken it because they don't have an option. They've given this, and it's very, very promising to see young ones here. So we run internship programs and we mentor, and I think we're going on the right path.
Great. I hope you succeed and grow from strength to strength and manage to keep this in check, because this is a problem that affects all of us, even if you're on the front lines fighting it.
Society.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
That was Soumya. And what a story, and what a life, and what a career. I think we come across professions like these where they make such a huge difference to the lives of people simply by doing what to them is their job. So join us next week for another session and another profession. Subscribe to the episode so that you can catch it every Friday at 3. My First Job, the podcast, is a production from Ideascape Communications. Guest relations, promotions, and creative is managed by Deepa Ravi with occasional support by Venugopal Nair. Archiving and technical help is provided by LPS Jayachandran.